welcome to the next installment of the Teaching Technology series. This is the second to the last one. We have one more that's on ePortfolio, which I will be presenting on the Tuesday after spring break. So today we have Bebber from the writing program, and she'll be talking about technology incorporation for non-techies. I was trying to figure out what to for the classroom, and I was trying to figure out how to introduce her, and I think the best way I can do it in a way that will hopefully encourage her is for someone who admits to be a non-techie, she's actually very high-tech in the ways she teaches and the way she uses things. So hopefully today the presentation will give you some ideas if you consider yourself a non-techie, to be encouraged by the things that she's doing, and hopefully to learn some of the strategies that you can incorporate in your own teaching and your own situation. So, great.
And thank you, Mike, because without Mike, I really, truly wouldn't be here. Just a couple of days ago, he dazzled me again with, we were on the phone, and I'm like, I'm having, my audio files, and he's like, okay, I'm going to send a program, I'm going to be in your computer, this is your screen. I felt really, really high-tech when I talked to Mike. But, and I'm not really that comfortable with it, but that's where I thought was teaching and technology really might be a good presentation, because it led to the question, well, what is a hybrid model, and is it really necessary? How much is it necessary? And I have gone through all that I could. I've sampled a lot of technology in the last 3 years. So what I have here is what I call a hybrid model. It's kind of a actually, I'll just look at this one. It ends up being, this is how I'm teaching my Writing 100 class this semester. And it's a very comfortable fit for me using technology, not just for technology's sake, but I really feel like it's benefiting the students. What I have here, I came to the conclusion after thinking about, how would I present this to everybody, and I was wondering what you think of my title there. Does that grab your attention? Dr. Osher? Space, lots of space. Instructors urge to use all they like. A lot of conversations revolve around space and how are we going to use space. And there's a couple of things on here that I want to talk about as not just the utility of space, but also the sense of community that it creates. I happened to run into my 6th grade teacher yesterday, because that's what happens when you live in the town where you grew up in. And he's one of my favorite teachers. And I was thinking about that classroom. That was back, if you think about your grade school, that's when your teacher had a classroom. And like, this is our bulletin board, and this is what's going on in our classroom, and you have that sense of community. And if you go down to number 2, I teach in a clone smart room with no clock. That's where I am today. And and that's not all bad, though. I mean, in the past few years, that has, you have to sort of decorate that canvas when you're in there, and how are you going to do that? One of the very first things, and if you go back to the 6th grade classroom, the 2 major points about space are the utility of space and the community. In that classroom, Mr. Becker's classroom, as you see there, he let my sister, who's slightly older than I am, 6 years older than I am, and she was quite a feminist in the early 70s when she was in 6th grade. And he let her keep a women's issues bulletin board, and she had, Billie Jean King on there and everything. And so there was that sense of this is your place, okay? And of course, everything we did was on paper, but like I say here, was I the only one who didn't mind taking notes? It's because that's how I was wired already. I mean, if I was going to study for a test, I liked to write it out, I liked to read and have that pencil in my hand. And, I kept journals even then. That was a way for me to think out loud. So what I'm coming to now is that I think that we do have a space issue here, and there's not really a lot of space to, do these kinds of things like we might like, and that might contribute to the writing process and really strengthening the way that the students can present their ideas and convey their ideas. So, I'm going to kind of go out of order here for just a second. I'll come back up to what you see in our outline as the heart of the thing, which is all the different technologies that I want to tell you about and how I'm using them. But I think I'm going to skip down to number 3 down here, observation and community. The small travel clock and small dictionary and thesaurus. That was an observation that I did of one of my colleagues in the writing program. And she's just a charming person anyway, and we all have these same rooms. And one of the things that really amazed me, or that stuck with me, was she came in and she put a little travel clock there, and she put a real small dictionary, a real small thesaurus, and just like, it was like Mary Poppins bringing things out of her bag and just going, okay, here we go. And then she got right to it. And it really, I thought that's really, something that we can't always do. And that has kind of stuck with me. And the other thing is, if you read B here, our newsroom is in cyberspace. I advised the student newspaper, The Prodigy, and we went to a really great conference a couple of weeks ago. And they, in different sessions, we learned a lot about, the editing process and writing and managing and all those things. But what was, I noticed a recurring theme in a lot of different sessions was creating a sense of community, that they're in this project together, and there was a lot of talk about, well, in our newsroom we do this and that, and in our newsroom we post this, and in our newsroom when this, and we're from Texas, and in our newsroom when the hurricane hit, they could come there, they knew there was a refrigerator there, they knew, and I thought, that'll never ever happen where we are. And I had said at one point, I said, our newsroom is in cyberspace. My kids all have laptops, we take them wherever we go, and we plop down, and that's our newsroom. So that brings me to our talk for today, that it is a place to think out loud. It is a place to create those kind of communities. When I taught at Summer Bridge, let me start at the top here with crops. We all know crops. And a lot of people experiment around trying to find what else they can do differently. And it's kind of intimidating at first, and then like I say, a lot of people experiment. I think it's a really good place to do those mechanical things, like taking roll, which I'll get into more in a second. I also use it as, I use the wiki site for, and this is something I got from my colleague Mary Smith when we did Summer Bridge. We set up a wiki. How many people do use wikis in your teaching? What is your...
TA for chemistry.
For chemistry, okay. And so, what kinds of technology do you use in there? Do you use props quite a bit?
We use props a lot. That's our communication.
Okay. So, you say communication, that's like not email. What kinds of, you use resources
When
folders?
there's any announcements that we have to communicate to the students, when they want to talk to us, they should talk to us through props. They'll email us.
Right. Okay. So I think it's a really great management tool that we have as a base there. In Summer Bridge, Mary introduced me to PBWiki, which is a something that is used, I think, pretty frequently. I have here the wiki that we use for the undergraduate research journal. This one is inspired by one that Anne actually created when she started the class. And we're able to have here weekly journals, editorial review board style sheet, just they can go here and find like archived things that are important to the class, the forms for the class. And not only that, but you can go post something and have students collaborate on that. So we had here, we were creating a letter to put out to professors, and we, one person put down kind of an outline, kind of a sentence outline, and then you can see in a different color, another student added. They're able to see what happened, and that can all, you can keep an archive of that there. I think that the wikis can be used in a lot of very functional ways. When I used the wiki the first time in my own class, when I taught Writing 100 last semester, I created links on the page that were for each group. When they had group projects, you can create as many of these little links as you want, so the subgroup can keep their notes there. They can continue to build on that and expand on it, and I can always check it there. It's a good place for keeping the little notes, you know, and that's the kind of class participation stuff that drives me insane anyway. And this is where I think that you can use the utility of the space in cyberspace to have them keep track of those little minute notes of who changed this, who changed that, what did we come up with at the last meeting. And so I think that makes a good archive for them. And it also is a really good medium for the editing process. And I can check and see. Now, what we are actually moving to, and I know a little bit less about this, though, is Google Docs. Does anybody use this Google Docs? Yeah? I think that one, it provides a lot more management. You know, you can have the calendar send you when things are due, and they can all be on that document at the same time, rather than like the wiki, they kind of have to wait for somebody to get off and then jump on and take a turn. And so I really would recommend experimenting with these kinds of management tools. The other direction that we're going in is constantly, we're like at the conference where they're talking about the hard copy of the paper versus the web copy of the paper. And I think that when you have students doing an ongoing project, having that kind of presence, even like we're going to put a Facebook link or community out there so we can get students who want to be involved in Prodigy, who want to be involved in the Undergraduate Research Journal, can start, and as a management tool, if you start using that as your meeting space, then you get their attention immediately. They'll get right back to you. During Summer Bridge, there were some things that we used for when they wanted to brainstorm. When a class wants to brainstorm, again, that's a good place to keep all of the details of the notes of a small project. Now, I have down here spring of 2008. That was 1 year ago when I tried to go completely paperless. And I found that to be, I thought it would be more efficient, I thought it would be time-saving. For what I do, for the way I teach and the way that I want to interact with them in that revision process, it really didn't work for me. I can't do all of the grading online and have everything online. I do like it. I have students right now using Turnitin with each other. I think it works well for them to have oops. So I'm just going to show you this real quick. How many of you are familiar with Turnitin? Have you used the grade mark thing on there? Okay, so they can view their assignments, and I would so here they're doing a collaborative essay in class, and this helps them, you know, they're responsible for bringing in material on their own, summarizing it, presenting it, and so the team has to synthesize this into a collaborative essay. And there, they can go on here, and you can make comments on here, and, you know, good intro, but where is the, you know, the citation or whatever. And then you can save that, and they're able to track the changes there with each other. But I like it for a tool for them, but for me, I found that I wasn't able, it took a lot of time to call up each individual student. It took a lot of time to put it in there and try and type the kind of feedback that I wanted to give them. It took just forever, and it ended up taking much longer than if I had just written it. So I want to show you what is my proudest moment, I guess, in all of this. So that's, you know, kind of an overview. I will, if you have any questions, I'll try and clarify anything that I'm going too quickly or I haven't. But this is really the thing. This semester, the best thing I ever did is these audio files, okay? I downloaded Audacity, And so here I can record my feedback. And it's really simple to do. I have like this $10 headset, and when so you get the paper and you set up a system with them where you say, okay, on this side I'm going to put numbers, on this side letters, or this indicates something that is content oriented, this indicates something that is technical oriented. And so, I don't have to spend all that much time writing things in the margins here. So when it's marked up, then all you have to do is go to Audacity and start to record. And okay, so I'm looking at the draft of what is left unspoken. I like your introduction here, although I'm wondering about the transition from there to the next one. And you can really get, so then I just stop. And here's where I go save, export as an MP3. And then I save it in a file. I'll just save it. I'll just create a folder. Are you sure? Yes, I want to save it as MP3. Then I have to name it. St. Patrick's Day. Oops. Okay. Let's put it up again. That's okay. So then, I get a batch of those, save them in a folder. Save changes folder. And I have to call it the same thing again. Okay, so then I have it. Where did I save it, guys? I don't remember now. I'll show you the ones that I have already saved. So it's in a folder, like this one. All right, and so let's just pick one to listen to. Who knows what nonsense Belinda and I did when we were testing this? Let's hear. Play. Oh, I would have to take it. So hear it. Do I need to have this in? So this is a test for when I grade my first round of writing 100 drafts. And okay, so that's me talking. Let me give you one of a student. I had the first draft of literature, and my first concern is that what you're describing here on 2 points. One, the way it's written here, where you have specific criteria. The criteria that you've listed, artistic inspiration, influences to make statements about this world regardless of consequence. It's not tight enough that somebody could find an example of science fiction or whatever one of the other genres and say, this is inspirational, this is a statement about the world. Okay, so I don't know if you could hear that very well, but the point was it's a definition essay. And she was saying, for it to be literature, it has to be this, 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 and this. So I'm saying, and the tape, I said, well, according to this criteria, somebody could say, there's this piece of science fiction, and it inspires me, it does these different things. So I challenged them on there, and from that point, and they have no trouble doing this. I thought they might complain about it, but they've done it all. They write the comments on one side, so here are my comments. Format looks good, be sure to write the monthly. And then their response on this side. And this has been so great. They can listen to the MP3 over and over. It eliminates the need to set up a time for meeting them at the library for a conference and then them not showing up, and then you have to reschedule or canceling class time for it. And they love it. You know, I mean, how rarely have students come up to you and said, that helped me so much, thank you. And not just one student, several, because they can hear, it's just because they get the hard copy back and they look at it and they can hear me talking and they're looking at my marks, and then they have to redo it, and then they write a revision. The next second revision, it goes to a peer, they get feedback from the peer, and then the final revision comes to me again. But it's been fantastic.
Sorry, can I ask a question about this? So you do mark their paper,
Yeah.
and then you also record comments,
Yes.
and then you hand them the paper back, and then how do you give them the recorded comments back? Do you email them?
This is where see, now this is where you can kind of do what you like, and I struggled with it, and then I realized UC Merced has space, right?
Yeah.
This is where it is so awesome, because when I learned this at a conference also, and they used WebCT where he was, and I'm like, I can't use WebCT, you know, and I went around like an idiot, and I'm like, but there are ways you could do it. You could save it on a pen drive, you could have him bring pen drives, you could email it, but that takes a really long time, but we have crops, which is,
just postage.
yeah, and so you can go to your crop site and go to network place it, and it has a, let me see if I have my
You don't need to, I was just kind of wondering how
well, what you do is there's a place on your crop site, and then you can go there and create a shortcut to. So here would be a shortcut to my writing 100 class,
Oh, okay.
and then I can just go there. And okay, so this is what's on my crop site that students can see. So if I pull this over here, and then I go to the folder where the files are kept, then you can drag them over and put them in there directly, and then the students can get them right there in the resources folder on crops.
And the students don't wind up picking up each other's? There's
See,
not that
I was
temptation?
worried about that. I wasn't sure. Now, you could email, it would take longer, and there's different ways. So I thought about the privacy issue. The guy that gave the presentation, he was like, well, I don't use their names. I save it as the name of their title of their essay, some keyword from that. Of course, anybody can listen to anybody's. They can figure it out. But we do so much in class of that anyway. I mean, there's only a thin veil of, who's really writing what anyway. We do quite a lot of switching papers and everything, so it's kind of, nobody has complained about it so far. I guess if they did, I would go to pen drives. Okay, bring your pen drive, and I'll put it on your pen drive for you. So that combined with the e-portfolios, which Mike is going to talk about on Tuesday, if I continue on here a little bit, then they have that sense of publishing once they get to the e-portfolio. And the e-portfolio, rather than me creating a PB Wiki, which I did a year ago, spring semester, their e-portfolio was on the wiki. I had them each create a link in the sidebar. They went there, they put their bio, they posted everything as they finished it there. But it's a lot easier, I think, to use the wiki for kind of that really interactive, collaborative stuff, to use crops for maintenance things, taking roll, that kind of stuff, and then to let the e-portfolio publish it for them. Because what I have them do, instead of having just a generic introduction, especially when we're writing 100 class, which is one of my favorite classes, they get to write that statement of purpose to an outside audience. Who do you want to dedicate all your work to? Where would you like to publish? Is it a journal? Is it a magazine? Would you like to get a research grant? Who are you focusing to? And then they have all the stuff in there. And so I think that really gives them a sense of it's done and everybody can see it. And they put in there the process that they got to. They have some other things in the portfolio too. I really like it for that reason. And as time evolves, I think that I like the way that I'm using it and how it helps my teaching, and I don't feel like it's something that I'm doing that is just this extra for no reason. I feel like it really helps, it really benefits. And then this also, the secondary thing that as I get better with it, as we can create these little communities there, and I think that's going to be really important too. I do this, I'm starting this with the Google Docs with my Prodigy students, but I can see this working really well in just a regular classroom too, that you can have that bulletin board where people get praised, because I didn't really realize it, but I'm starting to realize more and more. I mean, they really are motivated. The students, people are motivated by praise. And so, you know, if you can highlight this person did well and you can have a place for that, you can create a kind of a community. I think that these are all ways that you see or said, you know, what we lack in space, and we can really create that kind of those learning communities using the technology that we have. So that's basically what I wanted to share with you, was just what I have just been really happy with. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I teach Spanish, and the lower division Spanish classes, we have the students read a text and tape it, and then upload the taking on to the Dropbox.
Right.
So then we listen to them in our office, and then we evaluate them and give them a grade. But is there a way then to go back in and evaluate them as you did? Or would, on the same taking, or we would have to do another taking to give them a...
Like, so they have somewhere where they're recording. How are they recording? They're recording it on is it digital? And they put it in their Dropbox.
Right.
Is it an MP3 or?
Some of them use MP3, some of them use other
Okay.
systems.
I would think that you could just do exactly this and put it in their Dropbox. If you know.
So
The only reason I don't do it that way is because it's very time consuming. I don't know how, to go and open each Dropbox and drop it in. You could do that. I mean, all I'm doing is putting it in a different place on crops. I'm putting them all at once into a folder. But it certainly would be, would be the same routine that you do to move any other kind of document. You can move it into their Dropbox also, and then they could just pick up your response there. Does that answer your question?
Right, so we would have to go write down, take notes of the errors that they made, and
Yeah.
the feedback. I mean, we could be listening to their tape, so we could be giving them feedback to do or separately, like write down, the errors that they made, mistakes, and then go back in and give them feedback. Well, positive as well.
Yeah. I think
So is it really a lot of work then to do that, to go back in and create another one, and then
when you say go back in, do you mean like start
go
over?
back onto, go into the Dropbox and go into each individual's Dropbox? Is that a lot of work?
Well, that's where it depends on how you want to organize things. Like sometimes, I mean, for me, it works to go through and that's why I do it all at once. I mean, what sounds like a lot of work is going into each Dropbox, because that's kind of more the scenario that I had when I was using Turnitin, where I have to go to each student, open it, wait for it to open, then go in. That doing it individually that way is a lot more time consuming, and that would be probably what you'd be doing if they're already in Dropboxes. You have to go individually. And so if I imagine that, you would click it, you'd have to listen. I don't know, it might not be that hard if you're already doing that. That's already your routine, right? So
That's
you're
different
now
than
you
what you're doing, because you're looking at written text.
right.
You're listening to.
Yeah, you listen. So you would listen, and you would have to write it down. Unless you were listening to it separately, I guess you could be recording at the same time if you had a different laptop playing it. And then you could, like if I had a laptop here playing it, I could just be listening and recording on this one. I mean, that's a possibility. Or, listen, write down what you want to say, and then pop open Audacity, record it, and put it in that Dropbox, and then go to the next one. You could do that. So either way.
There is a couple of other options on Cross where you can do, besides what you showed us on the resource folder, you can upload the whole batch at a time, and that's one of them is the assignment function. I don't know if you've used that before. So if you create an assignment, let's say an audio assignment, it doesn't matter what kind of assignment. If you create an assignment, then it creates an item under there, and then once a student submits something, they can submit an audio file, they can submit written documents, whatever it is. You can download it all at the same time, and then once you do your whatever feedback, you can upload them at the same time too. So that it's under assignment is one of the ways you can do
I
it.
got it that way.
Yeah, so
Not audio with papers.
yeah.
Download it, but then you give individual feedback.
So you download, so once the students are done submitting their assignment, you download the whole batch from for that whole assignment, for the assignment for all the students. You can open each of them on your desktop, provide the feedback, audio, whatever written form, and then just add another audio file or another document to their folder. And once you're done doing that for every student, then you can upload the whole thing again back to the assignment. So when this is where the students, you can assign a grade to whatever, and it's part of the assignment function that allows you to basically provide feedback, a grade, and do the whole thing in one. It's sort of the same thing that you did with resources. You can do it the whole batch at a time. So another strategy I think possibility is within resource folder you can set permissions for who can see what folder. But you will have to do that in advance and create sort of, I guess, all the folders, each for your student, and for each folder just allow permission for that student and you to see it, and then no one else can go into it. But you will have to do that in advance so that you can have that security for privacy for each student. So.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, I guess I was a little less time than I thought. But
well, Chris, I do have a question. Can you talk a little bit more about how the editing or revision process works in terms of the Google Docs, just for those who aren't familiar with it?
I bring up Google Docs as an alternative, but we are still setting it up.
Okay.
So
Or the Wiki.
The wiki I could show.
So how do you tell whether or not who did what on there? I mean, what would be some of the ways that you can?
Okay. We have.
Chris, can I ask you something? Or do you need to focus on it? So now, do you do audio files with all the feedback you give now?
Only on the first one, the first draft. And then, but I did have them complete a feedback chart for the third draft.
Okay.
Because, you find that even though you're like, okay, they did really great, but you're still doing a lot of, you feel like, well, this could be edited or this could be, let's see, I did kind of lose my train of thought.
Sorry.
I thought I could do it. But I did have them go ahead and create the feedback chart for the lesson, but I didn't create another audio file. But I think that feedback chart is almost as important, because it's digital too. It can also go in their portfolio, the e-portfolio, and that kind of helps for them to see the train of the progression of things there. And I really liked, at the end, having them do it at the third one, because then they could say, okay, well, I'm still doing this, or now I understand that. And because sometimes you feel like on that last draft, maybe they just get the grade and they don't pay attention to it. So that helps to reinforce any editing that you still feel like you're doing. Okay, for this one, let's see. I showed you the letter to faculty. We also, see this one I'm not sure, see they have here, they use different colors, basically that's all I could mention, but one of the things that I think would be useful with this, we were talking about how to do a reading assessment, and when I think about how Google Docs works and how this works, I think it can be expanded even into other areas, like even a science area. When they are having trouble with the material, it's you can put it there, and they can, in Summer Bridge, we would allow them to do some of the reading like as a group, okay? And what that means is you give them the text in the middle, and then on one side they kind of paraphrase what they understand it to mean, and then on the other side, they put their connections or their responses. And what they did, because we want to kind of really build that comprehension, and sometimes this person knows it and this one doesn't, we put them in groups or pairs, and we always specified use a different color of pen or use something else so that you can see. So one person reads it and puts the comments there, and then the next person can come back and put in a different color ink, this kind of thing. And annotating a text for comprehension isn't that different from peer reviewing somebody else's writing. You're doing the same thing. You're looking at it and you're going, is it clear? Do I understand it? Do I have questions? Over here, just, you know, this is what I think you're saying, this is how I understand it. Here's, if I paraphrase what you're saying over here, and this is what I understand over here. I think that model of teaching comprehension is a really good one that you could use, putting documents on there and then allowing them to kind of annotate and then have a peer annotate and see if their progression, you know, if there is a progression in their thinking. And the same thing for the writing. Let me go to the Prodigy Wiki. See if they've... See, the thing is, I'd like to get it to be a little bit more robust part of what I'm doing, but they are moving to Google Docs now, and I just don't have that started yet. I don't have my Prodigy one either. But what can happen then, once they get all those comments and you can see who's made all the comments on that document, then the writer of the piece of the article, let's say, can go back and just like how I make my students do the feedback chart on the last draft, the student who's going to publish an article in the Prodigy has to go out and take out what the different comments from the managing editor and the editor-in-chief, and you know, anything that's on there, they have to kind of take it out and see, well, you know, I'm using too many verbs, or you know, repeatedly I've had to take out a verb of being and replace it with a more active verb or whatever. And I can't demonstrate it because, like I said, I don't have the Google Docs thing set up yet. But as it was demonstrated to me, it's also if the PV Wiki can do this, I wasn't. You know, you can go in there and see what the other the archive of the history is, but on Google Docs there's a function where you can do that a lot more. It's a lot easier, I think, to do that, but you'll have to take my word for it. I don't have it set up right now, but so that's how we're using it. That's how I'm using it, both in the class and for kind of a project.
How about when working with Word and doing just markup on a document? Are there advantages to using Google Docs or a PV Wiki
As
opposed to just working with a Word document and emailing it back and forth, and each individual person makes their mark? Because one challenge I've had with wikis that I haven't resolved, and it's mainly because I haven't really thought it through entirely, is I've found that students in my classes have been reluctant to change a document because of the sequencing of things, that if they make a change, is that the right change? And so they feel very conscious of sort of
it's already been changed.
Yes, yeah. So they end up being very conservative in the way that they engage with the text. And I'm sure there's some procedures to work with that, and it looks like your students engage with materials more directly than they have in my classes. But sometimes it's helped in a matter of sequencing to do this Word doc and sort of circulate it around, so each person is like, okay, now it's my turn, and so I don't know. Do you have any suggestions?
Giving it to them separately, that they each get the Word document separately and mark it up,
yeah,
so that they don't feel like. Well, I think that, you know, that's the thing that is, you have flexibility with technology, and I think that actually does. Why are you not satisfied with that as a procedure?
It gets messy quickly, I guess. You know, if you have a couple of people who do it, there's no executive decision that's made. So I guess that's the ultimate problem. Is
see what I'm okay. That was the problem with the wiki, as I understood it, right? Was that people would go on there and they wouldn't, you know, oh, it's been fixed, so I'm not going to fix it. So it seems like, if I understand it right, sending them the Word documents individually and then kind of collating that would reduce it. Unless you're saying that the way I could imagine it getting messy would be as if that Word document got sent around with the marks, but then that's not what you mean, is it?
Yeah, it would be
Oh.
sent around with the marks.
Oh, okay, so then it's the same thing as the wiki.
Yeah,
It's
it is,
the
except
exact
it's
same
sequenced
problem.
because then like one editor starts and then the
Right.
next editor is responsible. And
Oh, okay.
it's a small
So then it like a microcosm is the same thing as working on the wiki that is already changed, and by the time that
yeah,
marked up
instead
document-
of
right.
okay,
Well,
all
then I
6
guess
of
maybe
you
that is
can
the
jump
thing.
on this when you want, and then all 6 of them sit there and go,
Okay,
which
so
one?
yeah, I think that, well, maybe that is the way that I thought you were doing it, maybe is the way to do it. Send out that Word document to each person, and then they each kind of independently say, this is how I see it, and then go to the Google Docs, and then they can kind of start to, because now they kind of have
Oh,
looked
okay.
at it.
Yeah.
I have it on my own, this is how I marked it up, so now everybody look at their Google Docs screen, and start doing it. But now they've already kind of made up their mind, because they went through it once, that, you know, they have kind of a stake in it. So once they can be on the Google Docs all at once, and if they go to the same spot
They've
at the
already
same
done
time,
that stuff.
they're going to have to say, well, this is what I did, and the other one say, well, this is what I did. And these stances are already taken, and then there's not that, oh, okay, you've already done it, then I'll step back. So that might be the way to do it. The way I thought you were doing it.
That's a crazy question. Thank you.
So,
I'm kind of interested in how this would apply to other areas besides writing. It sounds like you can use the audio files in language because you're giving, I mean, it's superior. You can give the accent and give instruction how to speak. In terms of the sciences, is this a good way of preparing people for labs, perhaps?
Well, so I teach chemistry 1 or chemistry 2, like general chemistry, and the passing rate is something along 50%. And so it's just not very well understood by the students. And we get lots of students repeat. And so, I mean, I think this wiki might be a good idea of helping students help each other clarify concepts. And so, I mean, that's kind of why I came to this to see. But it's something that I'd be think more about, need to talk to instructors, other TAs, because it seems like something like a collaborative effort like that could work where people were all.
when you talk about them using the wiki, do you mean like to come together to generate like a lab report, or
Like
to
come together to-
understand the?
As like a meeting space online,
Okay.
like one of
Yeah.
those issues you were talking about.
Right.
That seems like a better a use for the sciences. So yeah,
And you could even audio your own explanation of some key concepts.
or you could type it out.
You
That
know,
wouldn't
you
matter
could
too
type it
much,
out,
but
but some people hear it better. I don't know.
maybe.
Yeah, well, I think too, like I say, the way that we peer review writing is very much the way people comprehend any kind of reading. So that might be another thing of putting something on there and then having the conversation about, you know, like the key thing that people are misunderstanding. But in the end, it becomes that community that you're talking about, kind of a support group place to kind of self-motivate, tutorial there, or that side area to work things out. I think it could work that way too. But again, I really like the Google Docs just because everybody can be there all at the same time. I think that is a major benefit to that one for any of these purposes. Last chance. About to power down. All right, well, I hope that was
I will
useful.
close it for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for helping us out. There's a sign-in sheet going around, so make sure you sign in so that we can have record of your attendance. Just a reminder, we have one last installment in the series on e-portfolios, which is the Tuesday after spring break. So we'll be meeting actually in here, same time. So thank you again, Chris. And this session was recorded, and well, it's being recorded, and it will be available on our website too. So, and also all the previous sessions in the series is also available on our website. So thank you again for coming.